What a great crowd. Thank you all for coming out. You represent the best of America. You're here because you love Virginia. You could be anywhere on this beautiful fall night, but you're here because you want to stand with us. You want to stand with what's right. And listen, one of the joys I have as your Attorney General, I know Winsome feels the same way, and so does John, as we go around asking you all to hire us, or in my case, rehire me, it's also to remind Virginians of where we came from. Because the Virginia from 4 years ago, the Virginia of 2021, was a pretty different place, wasn't it? Do y'all remember the Virginia of 2021? It was a Virginia that was dying. It was a Virginia that in 2021, that Virginia was telling parents, you don't matter. It was the Virginia of 2021 was 46 out of 50 states in job creation. The Virginia of 2021 was 48 out of 50 states in reopening our schools. We were all there. We were being told by left-wing politicians in Richmond that putting your child in front of a computer screen 8 hours a day somehow was a quality education. We saw 20 years of gains for Black and Latino students wiped out because they kept their schools closed while they kept their ABC stores open. And they kept their private schools open. But our public schools, they kept closed. And for 8 straight years leading up to 2021, you had more folks moving out of the state than moving into the state. To show you how unusual that is, that had not happened since Calvin Coolidge was president. Now, I did have a young staffer ask me, boss, who in the world is Calvin Coolidge? So if you don't know, that last happened 100 years ago. And then in this moment where Virginia was a state that was dying, something happened. Do y'all remember what happened in 2021? It was called victory, right? You hired me, you hired Winsome, you hired Glenn. And folks, it's the most remarkable 4-year turnaround any state has seen in modern American history. The Great Virginia Comeback. A lot of y'all were there that day at the state capitol in January of 2022 where we went down the steps, did a quick prayer, and then we went to work for you. As Glenn loves to say, we don't take plays off. And this turnaround, what we've seen when you give tax relief, $9 billion, when you cut regulations, over $1 billion worth of regulations, when you try to actually set up a model where you protect right to work, businesses come and thrive. $140 billion of brand new investment that's come to Virginia in the last 4 years. That's greater than the last 5 governors combined. 1.5 job openings for every Virginian looking for a job. It's been this remarkable turnaround. Virginia is now zooming. And yes, as we kind of zoom forward, Virginians now have reversed that trend. After 8 straight years of more people moving out of the state, now more people move to Virginia to chase their dream to open that business. We were becoming a dying state, and now we're a thriving state. So who we elect in leadership matters. Who we elevate as our governor, our lieutenant governor, and yes, little old me, the AG, it matters. Because you don't have to look to California. You could just go up a couple miles up the road to Maryland. I was on the phone with Governor Larry Hogan, former Republican governor of Maryland, left office at the end of 2022. And he was telling me, Jason, when I left office, Maryland had a tax surplus. We had done a small rebate for our taxpayers. We had some investment coming into Maryland. And after he left office, you had a far-left monopoly that took control. And what happened? Tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. And now Maryland is the 3rd highest tax state in the entire country after New York and California. Well, do we want a Maryland, our Virginia? No! Do we want a Maryland, our Virginia? No! I didn't think so. And that's what's so amazing to our friends on the other side of the aisle. They always talk about, we're going to make cost of living affordable. Well, let me ask y'all a question. Do you know of a single blue state that has complete left-wing control that is the case? Are gas prices cheaper? Are your utility bills cheaper? Are your taxes lower? No. The best predictor of future performance is past performance. We know what will happen if they get control. And so that's why this election is so important. Now, when I say that Virginia was dying, I meant that in a literal sense. Virginia was a state that had a 20-year high in the murder rate, a 30-year high in the violent crime rate, the highest levels of addiction deaths ever recorded. And I said as Attorney General, be the top prosecutor of the state. I made you several promises. Number one, we're going to work with the police instead of against the police. And Governor Youngkin and Winsome and I, we launched Operation Bold Blue Line to put more cops on our street. I said we would prosecute repeat violent offenders, and we did, launching Operation Ceasefire in our most violent cities. Because 5% of felons is what we saw were committing over 50% of the violent felonies. You had to go after those repeat violent offenders. We did that in their cities, and in our ceasefire cities, we've seen over a 60% drop in some of those cities in the murder rate in just 3 years since we launched it. I promised you, Virginia, that we would go after the fentanyl dealers. My office alone, the last 4 years, have prosecuted and removed enough fentanyl off the streets that would have taken the lives of 7 million Virginians. I promised you, Virginia, that we would go after the big pharmaceutical companies that came into Virginia 20 years ago, and they treated all of us like a chemistry experiment by putting OxyContin and pushing it, not warning anybody how addictive it was. We investigated them, we sued them, got some of the largest settlements and lawsuits in Virginia history, $1.5 billion that has gone to treatment, that has gone to getting Virginians back on their feet. And so earlier this year, Glenn and I got called up to DEA National Headquarters, where they announced that we weren't top 10, not top 5. We were the #1 state in the entire country in the drop of addiction deaths. So Virginians, by every objective measure, more Virginians are working today, thriving today, and alive today because of the smart, common sense policies that we brought in this Virginia comeback, from the Virginia that was dying to a Virginia that is thriving. So I'm honored to ask Virginians to rehire me, continue to be the people's protector. Now, I know my election hasn't gotten a lot of national attention at all, has it? But there is somebody else applying for the job. His name is Jay Jones. Jay Jones is asking Virginia to hire him to be the top prosecutor in the state, and he's never prosecuted a case a day in his life. He's a politician, not a prosecutor. And we know what he did when he served in the General Assembly. He was a left-wing social justice warrior. He voted against cops time and time again and against victims. He voted to end the mandatory reporting requirement of sexual assault in schools, which led directly to the scandal in Loudoun County, where the 15-year-old boy put on a skirt, sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl, and then just got transferred to another school where it happened again rather than notifying cops. He supports pulling our SROs. Those are literally the cops that guard our kids in our schools. He wants them out of our schools. I want them in. He voted for the disastrous Ralph Northam early felon release program, which allowed over 9,000 felons out early, and in less than 2 years, half of them were already rearrested. By every objective standard, he does not have the judgment or the experience for this job, but I will be honest with you. My election now has become such more than just politics. It's become a referendum on decency. Folks, if I could just be honest with you, when all this happened, and I was so floored by this, that there's never been anybody who's run for Attorney General that's ever advocated for violence against children. There's never been anybody that's run for Attorney General that wanted to see 2 bullets in the head of an innocent Virginian just because he didn't like his politics. But when these text messages happen, I know Todd Gilbert. I served in the General Assembly with Todd and Jay. I know Jennifer Gilbert, Todd's wife. She's an absolutely lovely human being. I know those kids. Jennifer would bring them to the General Assembly. We'd see him running down the hallway. So does Jay. These weren't hypothetical people. This was a real husband and father he knew and he served with. This is a real mom and wife that he had met, and real children that he had seen and met himself. Think about how shocking that is. Think about if somebody said that about your friend, kids that you know. And so there's this exchange that just chilled me to my core. It's when he's texting with his colleague, and his colleague is saying, "Jay, please stop. Jay, please stop. This is inappropriate. You are hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children die in her arms. And his response was, yes, because it is only through pain, as I've told you before, that change occurs. Now, part of why that chilled me so much was my family story. You know, I travel around Virginia a lot, and sometimes I get asked, you know, what kind of name is Miyares anyway? And I like to say, well, it's a Southern name. It's deep South. But my family fled Cuba. I've always understood this is the American miracle, what this family has given, what this country has given my family. But my mother said this. She said, you know, in Cuba, when the communists took over and the Marxists were inflicting pain on the innocent, when they were taking people in the middle of the night and beating them and arresting them, or like my uncle Angel Miyares, who went through a mock execution, when the Marxists were going and they were nationalizing people's small businesses and they were taking away your homes, the Marxists never once thought they were the bad guys. Not once. My mom shared with me, she said, the Marxists always thought of themselves as the good guys. Why? Because it's okay to inflict pain on the innocent if it means we're building, quote unquote, a better society. Folks, that mindset to inflict pain on children is disqualifying. I don't care if you're running from to be a local town councilman, definitely not to be the top prosecutor of Virginia. And there was something else that also has come out that just floored me. It's when he told a colleague that he hoped to see cops die if it would lead to them changing how they police. I know Glenn and Winsome will tell you, but the hardest part of this job is attending the end-of-watch funerals of the brave men and women who wear the badge, who fall in the line of duty. Folks, the reason why they call it the end-of-watch funeral is the last thing they do before they roll the casket out of the auditorium or the church of the fallen officer is they pipe in the dispatcher. And a dispatcher calls out the fallen officer's name 3 times. 3 times, there is no answer. Until finally it ends with Officer Michael Chandler. Your watch has ended. We have the watch. I can't imagine someone being in this position as a top prosecutor who works with law enforcement heroes every day, being that mindset where he wants cops to die. That is the most disqualifying thing anyone looking to serve in office can ever say or think. Because Michael Chandler, he died on his birthday. He was from Big Stone Gap. The same pastor that married him 30 days before was now doing his funeral. These are some of the most brave individuals you ever meet. When there is danger, they rush in for us. And so Jay Jones has disqualified himself by what he has said about children dying in their mother's arms, what he said about cops. There's never been anybody that's run for Attorney General to be the top prosecutor that is now under criminal investigation by a special prosecutor by a court in New Kent County. Why? Because 116 miles an hour on the interstate, the way he got out of going to jail, was doing community service for his own pack. So Jay Jones probably needs to be more worried about his law license